Only 29 years after the guns fell silent at Yorktown, the United States, a nation of barely 8 million souls, found itself dragged into a second life-or-death struggle with the same empire it had defeated in 1776, Great Britain. While Britain was locked in a titanic death match with Napoleon across Europe, the Royal Navy, desperate for manpower, began stopping American merchant ships on the high seas and kidnapping thousands of American sailors in a brutal practice called impressment, sometimes dragging men off ships within sight of the American coast. At the same time, from forts in Canada, British officers were openly supplying guns, powder, and money to powerful Native American confederacies led by the great Shawnee warrior Tecumseh and his brother Tenskwatawa the Prophet, who dreamed of uniting all tribes to halt the endless flood of American settlers pouring across the Appalachian Mountains. In Congress, a fiery new generation of young leaders, the Warhawks Henry Clay of Kentucky, John C. Calhoun of South Carolina, and Felix Grundy of Tennessee, thundered that Britain was treating the United States like a disobedient colony, not a sovereign nation, and demanded war to conquer Canada, end impressment, and defend American honor once and for all. On June 18, 1812, President James Madison, a quiet scholar who had helped write the Constitution, reluctantly signed the declaration of war. But America was utterly unprepared. The regular army had fewer than 7,000 poorly trained men scattered across a continent, the Navy boasts of just 16 warships against Britain's 1,000, and the treasury was almost empty. The first attempts to invade Canada were comic disasters. General William Hull surrendered the entire city of Detroit without firing a shot when he mistakenly believed he was surrounded by thousands of native warriors. At Queenston Heights, New York militia refused to cross the Niagara River, claiming they had only enlisted to defend their own state, leaving regular troops to be slaughtered. Then came the darkest days of the war. In August 1814, a battle-hardened British army that had just defeated Napoleon landed in Maryland, routed an American militia at the Battle of Bladensburg in what Washington wags called the Bladensburg Races, and marched unopposed into the national capital. That night, redcoats set fire to the White House, the Capitol, the Treasury, and the Library of Congress. Flames lit the sky as President Madison and his wife Dolly fled into the Virginia woods with only what they could carry. Dolly saved the famous portrait of George Washington by ripping it from its frame. Yet even as the Capitol burned, Americans fought back with astonishing courage on water and land. On the high seas, sleek American super frigates like USS Constitution, forever after old Ironsides, smashed bigger British warships in single-ship duels that stunned the world. On the Great Lakes, young Captain Oliver Hazard Perry built a fleet from green timber, fought the entire British squadron on Lake Erie, and when his flagship was destroyed, rode through cannon fire to another ship under the flag, "Don't give up the ship," finally forcing the British commander to strike his colors and sending the immortal message, "We have met the enemy, and they are ours." In Baltimore Harbor, when British warships bombarded Fort McHenry for 25 straight hours with rockets and mortar shells, a young Georgetown lawyer named Francis Scott Key, held prisoner on a truce ship, watched through the night and at dawn saw the enormous 30 by 42-foot American flag still waving above the fort, and scribbled the words on the back of a letter that would become the Star-Spangled Banner, America's national anthem. In the South, General Andrew Jackson, a tough Tennessee frontiersman, first crushed the Red Stick Creek Nation at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, breaking native power in the Southwest forever, then raced to defend New Orleans. On the morning of January 8, 1815, 2 weeks after peace had already been signed in faraway Ghent, 7,000 British veterans, fresh from defeating Napoleon, marched in perfect formation across open ground toward Jackson's ragtag army of frontiersmen, Choctaw warriors, free men of color, and Jean Lafitte's pirates hiding behind cotton bale barricades. In less than 30 minutes, American rifles and cannon fired so accurately that over 2,000 redcoats fell dead or wounded, one of the most lopsided victories in military history. News of New Orleans reached America weeks later and turned Andrew Jackson into a national hero overnight, convincing most Americans they had won the war decisively. The Treaty of Ghent, signed on Christmas Eve 1814, simply restored everything to the way it was before the war. No territory changed hands, impressment was not even mentioned. But the real results were enormous. Native American tribes east of the Mississippi lost their last powerful ally and were soon forced from their lands. The United States Navy had earned respect around the globe. The Federalist Party, which had opposed the war and even threatened secession, collapsed forever. And most importantly, A new generation of Americans who had never known the Revolution now felt truly united as one nation. The War of 1812 closed the final chapter of British military power in North America, opened the door to westward expansion all the way to the Pacific, and proved to the world and to Americans themselves that the young republic was here to stay. It was America's second war of independence, and this time, no one doubted the outcome. From the burning of Washington to the triumph at New Orleans, the United States proved it could stand against the mightiest empire on earth and emerge stronger than ever. The War of 1812 forged the American identity we know today. Subscribe for the next part. The Mexican-American War is coming soon.